Before we dive into today's episode, I have something truly special to share. Next September, I'll be leading an intimate women's retreat through the south of France and northern Italy, and you're invited. Picture this: mornings exploring the colorful markets of the French Riviera, afternoons sipping wine, and a hotel view with golden Mediterranean sunsets. Whether you love photography, food, or just want to reconnect with your playful creative self, this trip is designed for you. Spots are limited, so if all this sounds like your kind of adventure, please visit tourwithabsolutely.com and look for the tour France and Italy with Crystal. You can also send me a message or check out the show notes. Hey guys, my name's Crystal Kenny, and I'm in love with creating. All things artistic and imagination involved. I'm an American girl who chased her creative dreams all the way to Paris, France, making a living using photography. This podcast takes you inside the stories of all the artsy folks I've met along the way and gives you that extra push to discover your creative gifts. The desire to create is deeply inside each and every one of us, and I give you the tools and inspiration to find a new way of living a more creative life. This is La Vie Creative, the podcast. Claudine Hemingway is a descendant of famed writer Ernest Hemingway. We bumped into each other at a party and decided to team up and dive deep into French history, but with a twist, by bringing a spotlight to those lesser-known creatives in France. This is History with a Hemingway. Welcome back to Paris History Avec Hemingway. I am back with Claudine. She is newly arrived in Paris today. We are so happy to have her back. The weather is incredible for this week, and the flowers are all starting to blossom, so it's a perfect time to come. Everyone should come to Paris right now. And today we are talking about the women of the resistance. And we've done a little chat about these on Facebook Lives and other things, but it's fascinating how these women helped during the war and how they were unrecognized, many of them. So Claudine is going to give us a little more information.
Yeah, we did do a live stream, and I think you could find that actually on my YouTube. It was a fun little trivia. So maybe after you listen to this, go watch the live stream and see how many of the answers you know.
Yeah, exactly. Do a little quiz on yourself.
Yeah, but when we did this, it was like so many of the women, I was like, oh, I want to know more about each one of them. So that's what we're going to share with you today. So we're, of course, talking about the resistance of World War II. And there was quite a few. There's a very lengthy list. Unfortunately, as we'll share a little bit, not all of them got the recognition they deserved at the time. Of course, the first one is maybe one that there was a book written about her. So she is one that a lot of people know. Her name was Mary Madeleine Fourcade. She was born November 8th in 1909. At 20 years old, she was married and quickly left him and went to Paris, where she did a radio show with Colette.
What? They had a radio show?
Yeah, they did a radio show, and she was also a journalist. But from a very early time, she was quite outspoken. And at 27 years old in 1936, she met a friend of her brother-in-law named Georges Lassault, who basically helped ignite her hatred of the fascism that was starting to just, steamroll through Europe. So he had actually led a very large resistance sect out of Paris, and she started working with him. She worked with him, and her code name was Navarre, and she was his chief of staff.
I like that.
So in 1941, he was arrested, and he told her, you need to step up and take my place. Her code name was Hedgehog.
That's cute.
Yeah, and later there was a whole book put together, and everybody in their little troop that they had all had the names of animals. So it was later called Noah's Ark.
That's really cute. I like that.
Yeah, she recruited thousands of people, using them as radio operators, couriers, even pilots. She was always able to kind of evade a lot of suspicion because of the fact that she was a woman. And so they didn't really suspect women of doing these kinds of things, especially at the beginning.
Mhm.
Later, of course, they were suspecting everybody. She was incredibly fearless. And at the time, she was currying and having notes sent to Charles de Gaulle, who was over in London. She hid in a chateau in the south of France, and when the Germans finally figured out who and where she was, they came to arrest her. And when she was at the chateau, and she said, "Okay, well, can I take a bath first?" And they said, "Okay," and they went outside to smoke. And when they went outside to smoke, she tiptoed and snuck away and went down to Lyon into a safe house, and they never were able to get her.
She was so brave.
I
I mean,
know.
I would be terrified if they
I would be terrified, but also like, oh, I need to take a bath first.
Yeah, like how stupid is that? They were like, "Yeah, of course, lady. No,
Yeah.
take a bath."
Yeah. She was a master of disguise, and she frequently dyed and cut her hair. So she was always changing. She had 2 kids with her first husband that she never really saw the kids. During the war, she had a relationship with a French Air Force pilot named Leon Fay, who she also had a child with. And in 1947, she married a fellow resistance officer, Hubert Fourcade, who they also had 3 children as well.
She was busy in the baby department.
But even when she was pregnant, she was still out like on the front lines, fighting the Germans and everything that was happening in France. In 1968, she wrote a book, as I said, and it was named Noah's Ark. She died on July 20th, 1989, at 79 years old at the Val de Grace Hospital.
She lived a long time. What happened to all his children?
Some of them, the only thing I could find is one of the children ended up going on and was like doing something in the government, but that was the only thing that I could find about any of the children.
They probably didn't like her very much because she wasn't really around.
She wasn't very much around, but I mean, that's what the men did back then.
Yeah, that's true.
They were going off to war or doing whatever they were. But she's buried in Père Lachaise. And we actually did this book when we used to have the book club. It's a really interesting book. I definitely recommend to read it. And I have it linked on my website too in the boutique. The other woman is there all of these women are pretty badass. Cécile Rotongi, she was born April 10th, 1919. Her father was very involved in the Communist Party and raised her in that as well. She met Henri Tanguy, where she had sent letters. She served as a godmother of war, they called it, and that was when basically these women would send letters to soldiers, and that's how they met. Which now, I mean, I think there's like those women that I never understand this, that like send letters to like especially famous prisoners, and then they get married even though they're like in jail forever.
Yeah, that's so weird.
I'm sure that's not what Cecile. I'm sure it was much different, but it just reminded me of that. She they married on April 19th, 1919, and they moved to Paris. And in June of 1940, they started working in the underground, and her husband basically worked right next to de Gaulle. She became a liaison officer and helped transport money in a baby stroller, as well as like guns and grenades.
What?
Yeah. I mean, could you, the whole thing is like, if these ladies got caught doing what they were doing, it would just be horrific.
Dead, yeah.
Yeah. She constantly changed her name and had multiple fake papers because they were also helping others to make fake papers. And back then it was just like, it was just literally a piece of paper with like maybe somebody's photo and then just, written with this person's name. So it wasn't even like, it'd be so different now. Like
it was much easier to do it.
Yeah. In August of 1944, she served alongside Tanguy, and then basically in the August uprising that started, she basically was one of the main people along with her husband. And her husband, the Liberation Museum that's in Paris, and if you have not gone to that, it is a fantastic, amazing museum to go check out. It's free to enter unless they're doing a special exhibit, but it's a part of the museum is dedicated to her husband, because that is where they basically below it. And you could go, some days you could go down all the way underneath the ground where they had their offices.
That's interesting. I didn't know about that. Where is it?
It's a really, really cool museum. It's in the 15th, and it's just opposite of the entrance to the catacombs.
Oh, nice. Okay, so I've been over there.
It's really fantastic. They just reopened it a few years ago.
You know, it's so funny. I filmed a video with the director there a couple weeks ago.
Oh, really?
I'm so tired that I totally forgot. Yeah. She took me and showed me the dresses, the Liberation dress.
Oh, I love that dress.
Yeah, we did a whole video with the director. We're going to put it on the ICOM website, which is like the International Community of Museums or whatever.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, big deal. That's crazy. Yeah, I have been to that museum. I need to go to the underground part though, so I haven't.
I love that dress. It's like, because it's a young girl, and she made it, and like she cut out the silhouette of the Eiffel Tower and the Arc de Triomphe and stuff, and then put it on the bottom of her dress. I would wear it. Maybe those sleeves are a little too poofy, but I would wear that dress.
Yeah, I mean, they actually let you like go in there and like look at it, and they took us up in the archives and showed us all this stuff from the boxes. It's really cool. I'll share the video later.
Oh, good. I can't wait to see that. It's a really, really cool. It's a really amazing museum. But after the war on August 26th, she was the only woman that was invited to de Gaulle's meeting that he held at the Hotel de Ville. And she was really the only woman there because of her husband. Not cool. She had 4 children. And after the war, she was still very outspoken. She was working for the Friends of the Fighting the Spanish Republic. Francois Hollande gave her a Legion of Honor, made her a Grand Officer, but she didn't want to accept it on behalf because of so many women that were not ever recognized for what she did. But she begrudgingly did accept it, and she only accepted it on behalf of all the women of the resistance.
I love that. Still a badass.
I know. So cool. Her husband died in 2002, and Cecile lived to be 101 years old on March 8th, 2020.
What? We could have met her.
She should be in the Pantheon.
Yeah.
Some of these women should be in the Pantheon. There is a few the women that are in the Pantheon, of course, like Josephine Baker. A lot of them are there because of the resistance. Of course, Simone Weil and Marie Curie have their reasons for being there, but de Gaulle's cousin, I think it is, she's there. But some of these other women, and there's always people that are trying to do these petitions to get others into the Pantheon, and it takes years for them to decide to do this. So hopefully some of these ladies will get in there at some point.
Eventually, yeah.
Because there's only 6 ladies there, and that's not enough. The other one is, and it was funny, you recently sent me you saw this online. And she is also, her image, this image of her holding a gun is probably one of the most widely used images when they talk about the women of the resistance. Mm-hmm. Simone Seguin, her code name was Nicole Minet. She was born on October 3rd, 1925, and she's still alive.
Oh, we can meet her.
This might be the first time I have ever talked about somebody that's still alive.
She must be real old.
Yeah. At 18, she was in Thivert. She was on her family farm when the World War II broke out. Her father worked in the resistance and also in the local government. And the Germans came to him when they came to the town, and they said they wanted a list of all the women in the town because they, had basically taken over this large chateau, and they wanted women that could work there. So he said to keep his daughter safe that she couldn't, because she was a seamstress. Well, she had no idea how to do any sewing or mending. And the jig was kind of up one day when the Germans came by and dropped off a bunch of clothes to get repaired, and she didn't know what to do. She ended up leaving for Paris, and then fought just outside of Paris at the Chatrain resistance. Her first mission was to steal a German bicycle from a German courier. She did that, and then she ended up, they repainted the bike, and that's what she used to get to get around to pass messages. She took part in the fighting in the streets of Chartres. She blew up a bridge. She laid traps on the German tanks. She damaged their vehicles. So she was she was just out there down and dirty in the midst of everything.
She sounds way cool. All these women sound way cool.
Yeah. On August 23rd, 1944, she took part in the liberation in Chartres, and on August 25th, she was in Paris for the liberation, which is where this very famous photo of her, looking very French, holding this great big, large machine gun-like thing. In 1946, she was awarded the Distinguished Cross, and then after that, she ended up becoming a middle school teacher, and then later went to medical school and became a nurse.
She's done it all. War hero, teacher, nurse.
And she had 6 children and was never married.
How do you do all that, having 6 children?
Yeah. And I love the fact she was just like, yeah, I don't need to get married.
Yeah. Was this all with the same guy?
I don't think so. I couldn't find a lot on there was, some of them, there's very little. Like what we do kind of know about some of the women is basically just what they did during the resistance. But yeah, she had 6 children, different fathers. And that's kind of cool. She just was like, I love these women that were like, we're just doing it our way. We're not going to, to fall in line with what we're supposed to be doing right now. This is what we're doing. I'm fighting for this. Because that wasn't what women were supposed to be doing.
No.
But good for them.
Her is so cool. I love that photo of her.
Yeah, it is really cool. I love this lady, Aline Stadler. She was born in March 1891. At 18 years old, she entered the Sisters of St. Vincent of Paris as Sister Helene. She was forced to leave during World War I, but returned after the armistice. And then in 1939, as the war began in the Germans arrived in Metz, which is where she was. She helped transport soldiers in her truck. She was a nun, and so she was allowed to go into the camps, which were basically prisons, and was able to help and get out at least 2,000 people.
2,000, wow.
2,000 people because of her, were allowed to escape to the free zone. She had an entire network that was set up that helped smuggle these people out, including the future president, Francois Mitterrand.
What? She saved the future president?
She saved the future president. She was arrested in February 1941, but due to her age and her health, she was released from a 1-year prison sentence. For a year, she kept on working and helping transport people until she was just too sick. She was able to get to Lyon and hide in the Hospital Saint-Joseph. And then for 2 years, she stayed there and still kind of did, from the hospital, kind of would pass things off to help people with their papers and getting them into the free zone. When Lyon became occupied in November 1942, she left for Clermont-Ferrand, and she died 2 years later in November 1944 at 53 years old.
She was so young.
She was so young, but I just remember, and I'm dating myself on this one, the Flying Nun TV show. And I remember seeing this as repeats with Sally Field, and she had that great big nun habit, where it was like the giant hat. And
I see.
The start of it had her floating in the air because the hat was so big. That's how I envisioned Sister Helene.
What was wrong with her? Why was she sick?
I couldn't find exactly why she was sick. But she was born in 1891, but I think, who knows what she was around at that time when they were occupied and all kinds of horrible things in the air.
Yeah.
After the war, Charles de Gaulle named 1,000 people that were members of the resistance, and of those, only 6 of them were women.
I remember we talked about this during the live, and we were very disappointed in that.
Only 6 are women. The first few we've talked about were not any of them. 3 of the women, though, I picked out because I was like, these ones are pretty awesome. All of them were great. Laurie Diebold was born in January of 1915 in Alsace. That was, of course, going back and forth between German and France. But her family was very loyal to France. She graduated as a stenotypist, a job that's not around anymore. She got a job as a secretary just before the war. And in July 1940, when the Germans took Alsace, she set up a smuggling network that used her fiance and her family and other people's homes to hide people. Until they could flee to Lyon. In January 1942, she married Eugène Diebold, who was also an escaped prisoner of war. They had both made their way down to Lyon. In September 1942, she became Moina, and she had worked for Jean Moulin's group in the Free Zone. Jean Moulin is also who the Liberation Museum. It has a very long name to it, but a lot of it is Jean Moulin, and I'll post a picture of him. This guy was like super attractive and was like one of the huge leaders just of the resistance in all of France. She worked as a secretary, but she also put out and printed brochures. In Paris in March of 1943, she was working at the office that was on the Rue de la Pompe. On September 24th, 1943, the Germans invaded this office and arrested everyone that was there. They took them down the street to number 180. And basically, this is this horrible place. And I've read books that describe it. And it's literally, you almost can't read it. It's so horrible what they did to people. Tortured them, trying to get, information out of them. She was she convinced them that she was just there as basically like a mailman, just dropping some mail off. She convinced them, and so they didn't torture her, but they ended up shipping her out. She ended up getting shipped out to one of the concentration camps. While she was there, she escaped going to the gas chamber because the doctor that was there saved her by basically losing her sheet of paper that had her information on it. So she kind of slipped back into the system. She survived until the American army arrived in April 1945. And she came back to Paris. She came back through the Orsay, the Gare d'Orsay, which we talked about before. And then she was at the Hotel Latisse, which is where they really basically anybody that was coming back, most of them came through the Orsay, and then they went to the hotel, which is where they processed them. And then there's this heartbreaking because there's people that would come every single day looking for their family members, hoping they were coming back.
Yeah.
Of course, some of those people never saw their families again. But they were, the Germans took over that hotel during the war because they took over anything that was like luxurious. So these poor people are coming back from the camps, like withered away to almost nothing, and were sleeping in these rooms that the Germans once slept in. And, now they have sheets and the shower and all of this stuff. So it was a very strange in-between to be in. Her husband was also sent to a camp, and when they came back, they ended up going and staying in a small barn on her brother's property. She ended up getting a job as a secretary, and in 1964, when Jean Moulin's ashes were moved to the Pantheon, which I'll try to find a link to the video of that. It's one of the most amazing speeches you've ever seen when they interred him. The whole thing was just fantastic. She and a few of the other members of the team came there that night to the Pantheon the night before, and held like a little vigil that night before the next year. Just a year later, she died in Lyon.
How do you live through all of that and then like become a secretary? That must have been so weird for her.
Yeah, it's gotta be. I mean, the things that these women had to go through, that it's unbelievable, which then always gets me back to some of the women that made really horrible choices, like Coco Chanel. So, and this other gal, Emmeline Moreau Evran, she was born June 4th, 1898. Her father died at the start of World War I. And in September 1950, when the German troops attacked Loos, where she was living, she passed info to the soldiers of the whereabouts of the Germans, and also set up a medical post to help take care of people. She, from the very, very early age, she was already, fighting in the resistance, and this was World War I. Afterwards, she was recognized as a hero by General Foch, and was even given a special medal by the president at the time.
Wow.
In World War I. At the start of World War II, the Germans were well aware of who she was, and so they put her under house arrest because they didn't want her to start this up again. But she still joined the resistance, now with her second husband. She passed leaflets and info through a whole chain of people. She was able to avoid suspicion, posing as a pregnant woman, hiding money underneath her belly. And she dyed her hair blonde at one point, and she was known Emily Leblanc, which I love. She was in Lyon. She later was able to escape to London, where she went to the BBC and was on radio shows, making announcements to the resistance, because there was a whole code. Like, there was codes that they would say. So if you were in France, the Germans said you weren't allowed to listen to any of these radio programs, but they would have certain songs and certain words and things that they would say that were like hints to people in France that were listening to it. She worked in the government until 1958, and was still fighting. She never obviously got caught. She took care of 2 kids, and she died in January of 1971.
1971.
So, yeah. So she went through, she basically led the resistance in 2 world wars.
Whoa.
I know, pretty cool. The last one is Marcel Henry. She was born in September of 1895. Her father was in the government, and when she was old enough, she also enlisted, working in the government as well. She in 1919 she followed him into the Ministry of Labor, as she would start working there and join in the forces with the resistance. In 1943, she worked for the CBI, which is basically like the FBI. She was arrested in 1944. They wanted to find the leader of her group, but she stayed silent. She was sentenced to death.
Oh my God.
But it was rescinded, and she was sent instead in August of 44 to Ravensbrück, which is was one of the camps that it was basically women. So you will come across, if you're looking up things about a lot of these women, that's pretty much all of them went to this camp. She refused to do any work for them, because they would have these women as, prisoners and working for them. She refused to do any work for them and was severely beaten many times.
Oh.
In April of 1945, she was saved by the Red Cross and returned to Paris. She arrived April 14th. She died 10 days later on April 24th, 1945, because of everything she had to endure. But she was later given the Legion of Honor. She was given the War Cross. She was like one of the most decorated women of the resistance.
That's so sad that she died 10 years later. I mean, I'm sure with the way they treated her, it was hard for her to survive after that.
Oh yeah. I mean, you've seen like photos and videos of these people, when the Americans came to the camps.
Yeah,
it is just absolutely, it's heartbreaking. And it's just, I was reading this one book that was about Dior's sister. And I stopped reading the book. I mean, it was really difficult what they were describing of the camps, but also the book just was like very little about his actual sister. Yeah. But it was, I mean, when you were reading the parts about what it was like at the camps, it was very, very horrific and difficult to read.
Oh, Gosh, yeah, I couldn't read that stuff. It's just too upsetting.
No, but then these women that survived it and then went on with their life and then kept, fighting and standing up and everything. It's pretty amazing. I don't know if I could do that.
Yeah, I'll tell you, they didn't have much therapy back then. I think they all needed probably some therapy.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I don't know how you would get past any of those images ever.
Yeah, oh gosh, horrible.
Yeah.
Everyone's got to go to the Museum of Liberation.
It's so fantastic, and it's free to go to. It's really, really amazing. I love that courtyard in the center with the lights that are done in the colors of the French flag.
Yeah, it's so fun.
And you'll go through every emotion in there. Like you'll go through, like when you go through it, it's all chronological, and you'll go through like, it's just sad and heart wrenching. And you see like little suitcases with little shoes that belong to people that were escaping. And then at the end of it, when you get to kind of where that dress is, and then you see the videos of the people celebrating in the street. And then like you leave there, like, in a much better than when it started, just because it really pulls you through every emotional element.
Like you lived through the liberation.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Well, guys, thanks for tuning in today. Make sure you tune in next week for more history. Check out Claudine's website, ClaudineHemingway.com. Book her for a tour, sign up for the Patreon, and we will chat with you guys soon.
Thank you for listening to Paris History Avec a Hemingway. If you want to find out some more, you could always find me on my Instagram page, Claudine Bleu Blanc Rouge, and that's BLEU, as in the French way to spell it. And each day I post a daily history lesson about a person or a place or something in Paris, or it's lots of fun facts. And then also at ClaudineHemingway.com, where you can also sign up for my newsletter there.